Moving on to white blood cells. Before I say anything, there is a diagram, and I thought I had it on your notes, I apologize. In the textbook, on page 332, there is a diagram that would be good to look at just to kind of see how red blood cells and white blood cells all start at the same spot. They are a stem cell, and then they differentiate. So I thought that diagram was on my slides. It is not. That would be a good page to look at. So red blood cells are called erythrocytes. White blood cells are called leukocytes. So that's their scientific name. Very important for immunity and defending against any diseases. They are formed from, so here again, this would be on that page 332, hemocytoblasts, same as your red blood cells. They're formed in red bone marrow. Hormones that stimulate white blood cell production are either interleukins or colony stimulating factors, which are abbreviated CSFs. White blood cells can leave the bloodstream to fight infection. So white blood cells can actually leave a blood vessel. That might be something new that you guys did not know. Also, white blood cells do not live very long. They typically don't even live 24 hours. Lifespan is about 12 hours. There's 5 types of white blood cells, and they're distinguished and named by the size of the cell, whether they're grainy in appearance or not, shape of the nucleus, and then how they stain. So when we look at blood cells under a microscope, when they have the pictures in your book, those have all been stained to take on certain colors. There's 2 categories that these white blood cells can fit into. Granulocytes, so these are going to look grainy in appearance, and those would be neutrophils, eosinophils, and basophils. Agranulocytes, no grainy, they are not grainy in appearance, and that would be monocytes and lymphocytes. So I would circle that one. That you should know which ones fall into which categories. Neutrophils, purple stain. So here you can see that very grainy appearance. All of these are red blood cells. As they're aging, you can see they get a little clearer and clearer in the middle, which is also why they become brittle. But here I can see that grainy appearance. And a neutrophil is typically going to have a multi-lobed nucleus, and that will be a very dark color. So instead of having a nice round, perfect round nucleus in the center, your nucleus is going to have different parts to it, or different lobes to it. Here, neutrophils, most common white blood cell. They make up half to 62% of all white blood cells. So neutrophils are by far the most common white blood cell. Eosinophils, very grainy. They're going to have a very red, almost beaded appearance. And then their nucleus also will be very purple. Usually it's going to be bilobed, which means it kind of looks like there's 2 parts to it. So the nucleus is a little bit different. 1 to 3%. If you have allergies, these fight allergies, you may have a higher percentage, especially like someone who's having an allergic reaction or something like that. This white blood cell count, eosinophils, will jump up. Basophils, very few of them, fewer granules, and it's kind of hard to tell even where the nucleus is at. So I kind of have a big blue and then this darker red around it. Fewer than 1%. So basophils, very, very few. If you look at a slide of blood cells, it will be hard to find basophils. So now I'm getting to agranulocytes. This is a monocyte. Monocytes in the white blood cell realm are huge. They are the big dogs. They're the big cells. They're the largest of all of them. Their nucleus is usually large. It's usually like one, but it can be shaped almost any way. It's variable shaped is what it says. So it might be a little bit more circular than this. It might be spread out like this. Here you notice more blue. You don't see that red grainy looking appearance. So monocytes, 3 to 9%. There's a fair amount of monocytes. Lymphocytes do live the longest out of all of them. And they have a huge nucleus. That's kind of the easy way to find them. The nucleus is going to take up almost the entire cell. So lymphocytes, large, round, and this is the second most common. So lymphocytes, 25 to 33%. This is the second most abundant type of white blood cells. So there they are. What do? They can squeeze between cells, and they can squeeze between the walls of blood vessels, and that has a special name that I kind of would like you to know that. So diapedesis is when a white blood cell will squeeze through or leave the walls of a blood vessel. And then they can attack bacteria and debris that is outside of the blood vessel. Neutrophils and monocytes are phagocytic, which means they can eat up or clean up and destroy other things. Your monocytes can become macrophages, which mean they are big. They can probably get rid of the bigger stuff. So neutrophils and monocytes, phagocytic, they can engulf larger particles, help clean up things. Both of those cells contain lysosomes. Biology, this is an important cell organelle. Lysosomes help to break down things, so it helps them to get rid of other particles. Eosinophils, like I said, moderate inflammation and allergic reactions. Also defend against parasitic infections, so if you have, like if a human had worms or something like that, your eosinophil level would raise. Inflammation, even like if you sprain an ankle and you have an inflammation, swelling, your eosinophil number will go up some. Here is just a picture of diapedesis. So here I have large white blood cells, and they can squeeze through and leave the blood vessel and end up in surrounding tissue that is close to the blood vessel. They're not going to travel a real long distance. Basophils can migrate to damaged tissues, release histamine to promote inflammation, and heparin to inhibit blood clotting. So here again, you sprain, twist your ankle, very bad. Histamine is going to promote swelling. So basophils are going to cause swelling. And the reason that swelling happens is it's going to bring more blood, a larger blood supply to that area, and then blood is needed to heal. One, it carries oxygens and things like that for tissues. Two, it carries those white blood cells that are going to eat up and get rid of any debris that has been caused in your injury. And it has to bring platelets that are going to repair any torn blood vessels. And that's what's going to cause the black and blue that you see with a twisted ankle. So basophils promote inflammation. They're going to cause inflammation or swelling. Lymphocytes are most important for immune system. That is their main job. T cells, B cells, there's T lymphocytes. B cells, very important for producing antibodies. So lymphocytes' main job is immunity, infections, producing antibodies. If we look at white blood cell counts, notice these are a lot less. Red blood cells were 4.2 million. White blood cell counts at the most, at the high end, is usually around 10,000. So a big difference. Leukocytosis occurs after an infection, and that means leukocytosis, high white blood cell count. If you go to the doctor and you have a bacterial infection, typically you're going to have leukocytosis. Your white blood cell count will be higher because it's trying to fight off that infection. Leukopenia, too few white blood cell count, you're going to have a low white blood cell count, occurs from a variety of conditions. AIDS is one of them. Cancer would be another one. For some reason, your body is not producing enough white blood cells. And that will lower your immunity, which is why cancer patients often need to be kept away from people so they don't pick up things because they get sick very easily. Usually it's because their white blood cell count has gone down. And that's probably not caused by the cancer. That is probably caused by chemotherapy or radiation that has destroyed some of those white blood cells. Differential white blood cell count breaks it all apart. So I can go to the doctor and they'll say, oh, your white blood cell count is high, you probably have an infection. So they're looking at all white blood cells. Differential white blood cell count, called a diff, can help pinpoint because it's going to list the percentages of each one. So it's going to say, oh, here's your percentage of neutrophils, here's your percentage of eosinophils, here's your lymphocytes. Where a normal white blood cell count will just say your white blood cells are up. A differential is going to pinpoint and tell each specific white blood cell. And then you can look a little closer and see, oh, maybe they are having an allergic reaction. Maybe there is some type of mutation where they are not producing the lymphocytes that they need. Last part, blood platelets. So this is the other part. Platelets are called thrombocytes, and they are not a whole cell. They're a fragment, they're a broken off piece. So I have these huge megakaryocytes, and they start the same way. So page 332, everything starts as a stem cell. And then thrombopoietin is what is the hormone or the chemical that is in charge of producing more thrombocytes or platelets. Platelets are very important for repair. So if you break a blood vessel, there again, spraining the ankle, you usually tear some vessels. Platelets are going to clot that. If you cut your finger on something, eventually the blood needs to stop leaving your body. You need to stop bleeding. You don't want to bleed to death. Platelets are the part of the blood that do that. And normal platelet cell counts 150,000 to 350,000. So in between your white blood cells and red blood cells. But they are smaller also. Platelets are fragments, so they're not very big. And table, here's the table that breaks everything apart, gives you percentages, gives you their functions. Good thing to look at before the test later on. And that's where we'll stop.